Hey kids, welcome to the Santa Barbara Maritime Museum. My name is Holly and I am one of the naturalist marine biologists here, and I am super excited to share with you a new fun opportunity to learn how to draw whales. But first, let's go learn all about the whales of the Santa Barbara Channel as we take a walk down along the beach. So come with me. So welcome kids to your backyard of the Santa Barbara Channel. We're so lucky to live where we live and not only have a beautiful view looking out across the channel to the Channel Islands National Park and National Marine Sanctuary, but really what's super exciting is the fact that every year we're seeing more and more whales that come and visit us here in the Santa Barbara Channel. We have about a third of all species of whales, dolphins that are found around the world. About a third of them have been seen here in the Santa Barbara Channel. So such a high diversity of the larger baleen whales that are seasonal visitors, and even some smaller toothed whales like the common dolphins and bottlenose dolphins that are found here all year round.
Hi everyone, my name is Michael Matheson and I'll be working with you today to create an illustration of a humpback whale in its natural habitat. First off, these are the materials we're going to be using today. The marker, and I'm sure you're familiar with the crayon, and of course my favorite, the colored pencil. I like to start with the marker so we can get a really good drawing started and we can see it clearly when we go to color it in. I'm going to start with this blue-green because I'm going to be starting with the ocean. So I'm just taking the time to outline where I'm going to be placing all of my illustrations in the drawing. So I'm going to go through the ocean, I'm going to outline around where I hopefully am able to place my whale, my starfish, and some of my kelp. All right, there we go. Let's move on to our next color.
So it's really fun to learn about whales, but also to understand their ecological role that whales play in helping to keep our oceans healthy. And how do they do that? There is a direct link to the abundance of whales and the important role they play in minimizing the impact of climate change. And climate change is a pretty kind of complicated topic to really understand. As we know, our planet has changed climatically for millions of years, naturally warmer and colder over time. But in more recent times, in the last 150 years, through our activity of burning fossil fuels, we are actually causing our planet to accelerate in warming. So it's our human impact that's causing the planet to warm. And what we need to do is to think about how can we sort of minimize the impact by not only burning less fossil fuel, but to value the importance of certain animals like whales and the role that they play to minimize the impact of these greenhouse gases. And there's two really important ways that whales do that.
So we'll start with this darker blue to outline our whale. We're going to do a straight line. We're going to come up and get this tail section in. And then we're going to come back around. We're going to stop right there because we want to get his fin in. So if you think about it, this is kind of like a watermelon shape or like a half circle. And let's put his fin in. And this guy too. And let's get this section here in. Now let's do the sun. This is just a fun half circle shape and then just kind of creating a ray around the sun to give it a highlight. Let's work on some of the kelp. We're going to use a red for this to accent our blues. This is like a squiggly vertical shape. Just have fun with it. Let's use a purple for our starfish. We're just gonna be making a simple star shape, and then we can color it in later. All right, everyone, let's now move on to our crayons and start coloring this in. Let's start with our light blue, and we're just gonna start at one corner and work our way over. You don't have to press very hard. You just want to get some color down so you can start to work with the rest of the areas and start developing your colors you want to use. So here we go. There you go. We have an ocean.
So first of all, whales, of course, are marine mammals. So they have a blowhole, and this is how they breathe. And as whales swim along, they dive down deeper when feeding here in the Santa Barbara Channel. We have our blue whales that are specifically feeding on krill, a small shrimp-like animal. And we have humpback whales that love to feast on anchovies. And most of their food is down at a deeper depth. But because they're marine mammal, they then have to come up and breathe at the surface. And as they're at the surface, breathing and resting, they're also using the bathroom. They're pooping. And what that means is as they poop at the surface, they're adding really important nutrients. Their poop is important fertilizer, nitrogen and iron, that they're stimulating and enhancing the growth of plants. And the plants in the ocean, the microscopic plants, are called phytoplankton. And it's been well studied now that the more whales that are present in the area, the higher concentration of phytoplankton. The more plant plankton, then you have more animal plankton that are feasting on the plant plankton. The more animal plankton, you then have a very rich, diverse marine ecosystem. And once again, whales are enhancing that whole process. Plants are taking CO2 out of the atmosphere, and they're fixing that through photosynthesizing it and making oxygen. So whales play that critical role.
All right, everyone, let's move on to our next color. We're gonna be using an orange-red to do our kelp. I'm gonna start fairly hard, pressing at the bottom, and as I move up the kelp, it's gonna get lighter. We want to kind of create a gradient. While we're at it, let's put some of this orange red into our sun, but not all the way up, about halfway, and we'll come back with another color. All right, let's move on to our darker blue for the whale. But we're gonna do the same thing like we did with the other one. We're gonna kind of shade darker into light. On this fin, since it's behind, I'm gonna press a little harder so it feels like it's a little darker in the shadow. We're gonna do that same with this fin. And then you just use a little less pressure and then just walk the crayon up. Maybe I'll shade it a little darker on this outer edge. There we go. All right, everyone, let's move on to our starfish. We're gonna be using this brilliant purple color to start to shade in our starfish now. So just like the other techniques I've shown you, let's start to use this pressure to no pressure to create a nice gradient in our illustration. I'm gonna use this nice orange yellow to start finishing and laying out our sun. Add some of this beautiful deep hue. Yellow is what I like to call it, but it's kind of like an orange yellow. And then we're gonna come and get the rest of the sun. As we go move away from the center, we're gonna wanna make the sun a little lighter so it looks like it's glowing. Remember, it's all about that pressure. Use a little bit less pressure if you want to make it a little lighter. Use a little bit more pressure if you want to make it darker.
And as they're migrating along great distances of thousands of miles every year, they're also stimulating that water column as they're migrating through their whale poop. So pretty cool there. And just think of like a 50-foot animal moving up and down the water column. They just move so much water and help in that mixing of nutrients. And then another really important way that whales actually help minimize the impacts of climate change is a gray whale or a humpback whale. They might live 50 to 80 years, and in the decades of their life, they're taking so much carbon through their feasting of food into their bodies. And as they then eventually die, a lot of times that whale carcass will sink down to the deep sea where it lays on the sea floor, not only providing a very important ecosystem for a lot of scavengers, but it's taken that carbon out of the atmosphere, through their body, down to the deep sea, where we call that a carbon sink. So they're taking that carbon out of that cycle of greenhouse gases for thousands of years. So really important role that these whales play. So it's not only fun to learn about whales and how cool they are because of their migration and their mating and their social structure, but the fact that whales are instrumental in helping us mitigate the impacts of climate change and really helping to rebuild a very healthy marine ecosystem.
Let's use this really light blue and start to color in some of the lighter areas of the whale. I'm going to start by shading the nose of the whale down its belly. See that? Really nice light color, but it's going to give us a little bit of shading to make the whale feel a little bit more dimensional. Let's go back now and do some of that shading on our kelp. Let's use this darker red to start shading the bottoms of our kelp. I'm going to press kind of hard to get that really nice, rich, dark orange color. Let's add some finishing touches to this illustration. This is where you get to be a little bit creative. You know, maybe you put in some birds, a cloud, maybe a spaceship. Here we go. For the bird, I'm gonna go back to my marker, just because I really like the way it looks on the paper. It's like a V shape. Maybe you can make it a little bit broader than the rest of the marks. There you go. And let's put one over here a little bit smaller so we can show some perspective. Just like simple V shapes. That's great. Now let's put some clouds in. We're gonna use a nice light blue. I'm gonna do one coming off of the paper just so our illustration feels like it's taking up all of the picture plane. Here we go. The cool thing about clouds, they're just like little half circles all connecting. Super fun. See that? Super easy. If you want, you can put some little details on the inside to give them a little bit more depth.
Hey Mike, wow, that is beautiful. I am so excited to go draw my own whale and to welcome all of you here to the Santa Barbara Maritime Museum, where you can learn more about whales and their natural environment, and most importantly, why the Santa Barbara Channel is so important for our different whale species. So let's dive in.